cycling is full of bad advice, especially when it comes to fitness and how to ride faster on the bike. There are many myths in the cycling world. Well, no more. Today I'm joined by pro cycling coach Andy Turner to dispel and debunk 17 cycling fitness myths that refuse to die. So without further ado, let's dive in.
No, and it is my biggest bugbear on that. It's even though there are other ways of measuring thresholds such as critical power, second lactate threshold, second ventilatory threshold, and various other metrics, it just tells you one thing. And for FTP in particular, it's normally a 20 or a 60-minute test, which tells you what you can do for 20 or 60 minutes, which is fine if you're 10 and 25-mile time trialist, but for the rest of us, there's quite a lot of other metrics that matter more. No, that's a fairly big myth on that one. I always use the term rest is best because it's all training is a sort of balance of stress versus rest. If you ride hard all the time, lots of stress, not enough rest. And it's basically getting the balance of that right. That is a reason the pros don't ride flat out absolutely everywhere. Yes, their endurance pace is probably our threshold pace for most of us, but it's still, you don't need to go hard all the time to get fitter or faster. No, again, not at all on that one. It's quite common even with things like VO2 max efforts. People like to try and push a bit harder. They'll do the first effort and they feel sort of, oh, I could go a bit harder on that. Second effort, they do a max effort. Third effort, their legs are gone and they can't complete it. It's all about doing the right amount of stress, not overdoing it. Again, no, and it also comes down to that balance of stress versus rest. If you're a World Tour pro who can rest every waking hour of the day that they're not riding their bike, then they can afford quite a lot of stress in terms of the amount of hours they do. Whereas for a lot of us, there's jobs, there's commuting, there's work around the house. So doing more hours will just result in an excess of fatigue and not being able to recover from that. And then that's when you get issues like with overtraining. Depends on the person and what their goals are. I think if you can do the volume of it required, then it's a good session to do. If you've just got 1 hour to train on each day, there's not much point doing it at zone 2 intensity. Do 2, maybe 3 effort sessions a week and the rest keeping active recovery. Again, not as simple as that, especially if you're losing weight in the form of muscle, you're going to lose power. And then even if your weight goes down, if your power goes down with it, your watts per kilo isn't going to increase. And also when you've got 2 riders with the same watt per kilo, but one has higher power versus one has higher power and higher weight than one with lower power and lower weight, the one with higher power will climb faster. No, power's one element of it. It shows the external workload, but heart rate is the measure of actually what's going on in the body, your internal workload. But also going off feeling is still an important metric to use, even if you've got power and heart rate. Again, not exactly. There's several mechanisms that go into building aerobic fitness, and some of those can be attained via shorter duration, higher intensity sessions. So the sort of repeats work where you're doing maybe 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off, or 30-30s, they have long periods of high heart rate, which can help improve VO2 max stimulus, which in itself is part of the aerobic fitness component. So by doing these shorter VO2 max sessions, you can actually improve your endurance on longer events. Definitely not. Firstly, none of the professionals copy other professionals' training plans. It's all set explicitly for them and their individual goals, physiology, and where they're adapting within their training plan. So not even taking into account that we have very different race or event requirements to them, but also the amount of training we can do. Even the pros aren't copying the other pros. So you should be doing the training for what is best suited for yourself. No, again, If you're finishing every ride feeling tired, you've probably gone too hard, not rested enough, or you've not fueled well. Strength training is very beneficial in a lot of different ways. So there's the performance aspects of it where you can improve your fatigue resistance, be that in terms of the muscles in the legs actually having better fatigue resistance and you being able to push a higher percentage of your threshold without that dropping from fatigue. But also, if you get upper body fatigue, you start rocking around on the bike, you lose efficiency in that regards, it can tire you out more. So there's an element of upper body strength, and then also injury prevention. If you spend a month off the bike because you've injured yourself, that's going to impact training a lot. If you've been doing strength work and made yourself more resilient so you're not going to get injured as easily, you can train more effectively without time off the bike.
Today's video is sponsored by the amazing Hover Air X1 Pro Max. It's a hands-free tracking drone that can follow you on your bike up to speeds of 26 miles per hour and even bursts of 37 miles per hour. And it is dead simple to use as well. Simply choose from one of over 15 plus flying modes, press the button with your palm out, and it takes off all on its own, no drama. And then simply put your hand out and it lands on your palm, just like that. It is that simple, and that's why it's so easy to use and makes recording great footage a breeze when you're out on your favorite trail or road. It really is quite amazing and genuinely a product I'm happy to endorse and recommend, as I use one all the time here on Just Ride Bikes. Perfect for bike reviews or capturing amazing trails and experiences and events and races. And yeah, small, compact and dead easy to use as well. Hover Air's Valentine's Day deals are now live. Save up to 29% between February 6th and 14th on your purchase of a brand new Hover Air drone. The perfect Valentine gift to capture every single moment. Use the link down below to grab yourself a new Hover Air drone right now.
They each have their pros and cons. If you're needing to work on skills on the bike, then indoor training is not going to be as effective. So for gravel events where you need to get better at cornering and handling the bike off-road, then obviously you need to go outdoors. But at the same time, sometimes you can't get the structured work you need to do. If you live in a city and you've got traffic lights, junctions, all sorts, it's not necessarily easy to do the kind of efforts that are going to be relatable to the events you're doing. So each has its place. There's not one that's better or worse than the other. I really don't like this one. Again, it's people say that, oh, well, you're not coasting when you're indoors, you're always on the pedals, but at the same time, you're not stopping at junctions and then accelerating away from junctions, where in the same way, if you did a session where you're doing sprints and recoveries, that's going to be harder than just going flat line at zone 2. So in some ways, outdoor riding can actually be more difficult. People always tend to push a little bit more on the climbs. Yes, it might be warmer indoors, but if you're cooling yourself effectively, that's not a problem. Outdoors, you might find that it's too cold, or in some cases, I coach people in the Caribbean where it's too hot to ride in the middle of the day. You need to stay inside in your air-conditioned house. It can burn a higher percentage of fat relative to the power that you are doing, but you might not be able to work at the intensity that will actually burn the highest volume of fat. So it might be that you could ride harder and maybe it's a more 50-50 ratio of fat to carbs, but you'll be using more energy than if you were riding easier, fasted, burning maybe 70-30 fat to carbs, but that's 70% of a smaller amount rather than 50% of a larger amount. The fundamentals of training are inherently boring. It's quite there are a few components that assist with aerobic fitness that you want to do, and then the main thing that goes about it is adjusting the volume and the training load. It's progressive overload because your body adapts to the stresses that it encounters. If you keep everything the same, it doesn't adapt any further because it's adapted to that already. There's nothing new, novel stress stimulus for it to adapt to. So it's not a case of making sessions complex or overly fancy. It's about progressively overloading, be that the volume or the intensity or the types of efforts that you're doing. And there's a lot of different kinds of effort and training stimulus that you can apply to elicit the gains that you want to get, but they don't have to be some excessively complex, fancy session with acronyms all over the place. I would say that anyone can benefit from a coach, but not everybody needs one. If you're just getting into cycling, honestly, the best thing you can do is find a club to ride with, or even go for something like with Trainer Road training plans, because just riding a bike will get you fitter. It doesn't matter too much what you're doing. Going out with a club, you'll learn a lot of the skills and such in person with people. And there's also an element that some people just might not get on with having someone telling them what to do. And that's completely fine. I'd say most people will benefit from the right coach, but not every coach will be the right coach for everyone. No, you don't. If you're doing 5 hours at 300 watts for 21 days in a row, then yes, there's an element of that. But it was the Alula Tour last year. I think it was a summit finish, but the first 100 or so, 120 kilometers of the stage was pan flat, like 100 watts in the wheels. And if they were eating 120 grams of carbs an hour, they would have been gaining weight essentially. So the riders were eating a lot less. And then as it got closer to the climb, they started to eat more because of the energy demands for that. But for most of us, we don't need that many carbs, not unless we're doing massive powers for massive durations day in, day out.
So hopefully you enjoyed today's video and Andy's advice on which myths are definitely worth avoiding and the real truth when it comes to getting fitter and faster on the bike. You can find out more about Andy's services at his website linked down below, and stay tuned for more fitness advice from Andy over the coming days. But that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting that button right there.